Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Brandon again with Muscle and Strength, and you're watching part 2 of the video series, How to Gain Weight. Now, you'll recall in part 1 we went over caloric intake and how to determine your calories in order for you to gain weight while avoiding putting on that excess body fat. Today, in part 2, we're going to talk about macronutrients and how many of each you need. So when we talk about macros, we're talking about protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Now, each one of these can play a very important role in the body, but to keep things simple, we're going to look at it in terms of protein being needed to build muscle, fats being needed in order to maintain healthy levels in hormones, and carbohydrates being needed for actual energy. Now, while true, only proteins and fats are essential, carbohydrates are still going to play an important role as they're a preferred source of energy for your body. Not to mention, there's what's going to help us reach that caloric surplus that so often we find it's hard to attain. So now that we know a little bit about macros, let's take a look at a detailed presentation to determine how many of each that we're actually going to need. When trying to determine our own macronutrient intake, there's a couple of things that we need to take into consideration. The first of which is our own body weight, as well as our goal caloric intake. So, for these examples, I'm going to use the generic numbers of someone who weighs 200 pounds and has a maintenance intake of 2,000 calories. Now, from here, obviously, if you watch part 1, you'll know that in order to gain weight, we have to go into a caloric surplus. So, for this reason, I'm going to put this person's intake at 2,300 calories, which would give us a surplus of 300. From here, we can then talk about what we need in terms of protein, carbs, and fats. Before breaking down each individual macronutrient, it is important to note that each one has a corresponding value in calories. So for example, protein and carbohydrates are each worth 4 calories per gram, while fat, on the other hand, is worth 9 calories per gram. It's important to note these things going forward as we aim to make sure that we're getting in enough of our macronutrients while still falling within the range of calories we wish to consume. Okay, so let's first address our protein needs. As a general rule of thumb for this gaining weight guideline, I'm going to suggest 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Now, you might have read other studies that suggest our protein intakes can be lower, and that's definitely true. However, for this instance, 1 gram per pound gives us a nice, easy number to shoot for. Not to mention we're aiming for a caloric surplus as is, so the extra calories in this case are also going to be needed. From here, we can talk about dietary fat intake. Dietary fat plays an important role in everyday function and keeping our levels normal. For this, I'm going to suggest that you look to get 0.45 grams per pound of body weight. Now, we got protein and fat out of the way first as they are the essential nutrients, which leaves us with carbohydrates. As far as our carb intake goes, we're then going to fill in the rest of our available calories with carbohydrates. So let's take a look to see exactly what this looks like. So just a reminder, we're going to be using the stats of a body weight of 200 pounds and a goal intake of 2,300 calories. First things first, addressing protein needs. Since we're going off 1 gram per pound of body weight, our goal intake in this case will be 200 grams. For fat, going off of 0.45 grams per pound of body weight, we would aim to intake 90 grams of fat. That means up until this point, we have 1,610 calories accounted for out of a total of 2,300. Just a reminder on how we got these numbers, each gram of protein is worth 4 calories, meaning 200 grams of protein would equate to 800 calories. For fat, since each gram is worth 9 calories, 90 grams of fat would equate to 810 calories. This leaves us with 690 calories remaining. If we divide that by 4, or the amount of calories for each gram of carbs, we'll come out with 172.5 grams. So this is our goal intake for carbohydrates. Now again, please keep in mind that these are just based off the numbers at the top. You'll have to insert your own numbers to get your appropriate levels. So again, taking a look at the final numbers at a body weight of 200 pounds with a goal intake of 2,300 calories, our macro breakdown should be 200 grams of protein, 90 grams of fat, and 172.5 grams of carbs, which we can just go ahead and round up to 173. In a future video, we'll talk about when you should adjust these numbers and how long you should stay on this intake level for. Again, to find your own numbers, watch part 1 of the video talking about how to determine your caloric intake, and then follow it up with this video and input your own body numbers here to get the numbers for yourself. Great, so now we have an understanding about what macros we need as well as our caloric goals, so we're definitely making progress in how to gain weight. In future videos, we'll talk about a whole bunch of other things as far as diets, training routines, and things of that nature. But in the meantime, if you have questions, you can head over to the Muscle and Strength forums and ask me yourselves, and I'll be sure to interact and respond with you. In the meantime, everybody, thanks so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon right here on Muscle and Strength.